Prime Cabinet Secretary, Mr. Musalia Mudavadi, thank you for honoring us today with your presence. Also, thank you very much, CS Rebecca Miano, for making yourself available despite having to travel to Kigali today. We really appreciate your presence today. Principal Secretaries, NDMA Board Chairman, CEO of NDMA, all protocols observed, ladies and gentlemen, dear parliamentarians, members of the European Parliament, it is a great moment today because we are launching the second support project for NDMA. The EU has been a long-standing partner of the ASALs. We are very much aware that the ASALs are the majority of the landmass of Kenya. And there is a sizable proportion of the population living in the ASALs. And historically, the ASALs have been left behind. And what is happening now is just shedding a light over this historic inequality. And as the head of the World Bank here in Kenya is always pointing out, there's no country in the world that reached upper middle income status without addressing its inequalities. So that's why it is so important for Kenya to look at this in a structured and systemic way. So the EU already 10 years ago started the support for NDMA. So the EU was actually fundamental in the creation of the NDMA because we were convinced that it is not enough to respond to a drought. One has to look at it in a structured way and build resilience. And once a drought is over, we cannot go back to square one and business as normal. We have to work to make sure that it doesn't happen again, or when it happens, that it doesn't hit us as hard. That was the whole idea about establishing the NDMA. And I was telling the Prime Cabinet Secretary a moment ago, this is also why, even though Kenya has been very hard hit, it was not hit as badly as Somalia or Ethiopia or other parts affected by the drought, due to the 10 years of resilience building that has been happening here in Kenya. And this is encouraging us that NDMA, with this new support project that we're launching today, can take a central role, the role it deserves in the drought response in Kenya. We have also said that we cannot work in isolation. So Kenya needs to work together with the other countries that are hit by the drought and build a structural response that goes beyond the country, that is looking at an integrated response. And we all know that this is not a drought as any other. This is a drought that has been made much worse by climate change, and we will probably never go back to where we were before. So we have to look at permanent, sustainable livelihoods in the ASAL counties and the ASAL region for the future. And there are already some innovative programs and projects in the ASALs, even already making to use the carbon credit mechanisms. So this is already ongoing. It just needs to be scaled up. So there are many possibilities that we are exploring even beyond the support to NDMA. And we are happy that the government is taking this strong stance now in the fight against climate change and drought. And I hope that the other countries in the region will join you for that. So you have a very strong, unified voice that is also building support of the international community. That's why I'm so happy that we have our members of the European Parliament here today, so they can hear firsthand what is happening in the country and what Kenya is doing about it. So I'm very happy that we are here to launch the new 13 million support project, and hope that this will make NDMA even stronger, because the challenges are tremendous. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I now call upon the Cabinet Secretary, East Africa Community, Arid and Semi-Arid, and Regional Development, Honorable Rebecca Miano, to come and make a few remarks, and later invite the Prime Cabinet Secretary.
Your Excellency, the Prime Cabinet Secretary of the Republic of Kenya, Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, Your Excellency, the EU Ambassador to Kenya, Henriette, Your Excellencies, ambassadors from EU member states, honorable members of the European Union Parliamentary Committee on Development, all protocols observed, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and also our friends from the media, good morning. I am honored to welcome our distinguished visitors from the European Union Parliament to Nairobi. I invite you to enjoy your stay, and though it is short, take advantage of being in the world's only capital with a game park within the city. This event today is testament to the deep and meaningful friendship Kenya enjoys with the European Union. And the drought Kenya has encountered in recent years has greatly affected food security of our communities, especially those living in arid and semi-arid areas. The challenges this situation has caused have awakened us to new realities that are now reference points on what we should do not to find ourselves in the same spot again. I sincerely thank the European Union for providing support towards cushioning livelihoods of affected persons and communities, and the National Drought Management Authority has spent more than 820 million Kenya shillings donated by the EU to support counties affected by extreme consequences of drought. We do hope that the long rains will improve availability of pasture, thus reducing livestock mortalities, which we have witnessed in the recent past. We appreciate the dedicated and consistent EU support over the years that has enabled us to stay the course in the shift towards better management of drought risks. It is with that support that we made significant improvements to our drought early warning system, including modernizing data collection and analyzing in matters climate. I am glad that the Dry Land Climate Action for Community Drought Resilience project is provided strengthening, and it has also increased NDMA's capacity to drive ending drought emergency innovations and stakeholder-led coordination. I believe that this action will bring us closer to our goal of ending drought emergencies in Kenya. Ladies and gentlemen, I reaffirm our commitment to finding long-term solutions to drought emergencies and strengthening resilience of livelihoods, especially in the arid and semi-arid lands. And I thank the EU for the invaluable support it has dedicated to this cause. With those few remarks, I now have the single honor to invite the Prime Cabinet Secretary of the Republic of Kenya, His Excellency Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, to deliver his speech and officially launch the Dry Land Climate Action for Community Drought Resilience Project. I thank you.
Good morning. Madam Rebecca Miano, my cabinet colleague, Your Excellency, the European Union Ambassador to Kenya, Henriette Geiger, Your Excellencies ambassadors from the EU member states, honorable members of the European Union Parliament, Committee on Development, with the team leader, Madame Fofana. I hope I've got it right. The chairman of the NDMA board, Mr. Rafael Nzomo, senior government officials, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It is a pleasure to join you today during this auspicious occasion of unveiling additional funding from the European Union to Kenya. We are honored to host members of the European Union Parliamentary Committee on Development during their visit to familiarize with the EU development portfolio in Kenya. Your visit is a demonstration of the strong partnership that we continue to have with the European Union. The Union's development assistance to Kenya spans various sectors that include agriculture, resilience building, infrastructure development, public financial management reforms, and support towards alleviation of humanitarian crisis. Excellencies, honorable MPs, ladies and gentlemen, as you are aware, Kenya is susceptible to natural disasters. Droughts, for instance, are becoming increasingly regular as the effects of global climate change become more severe. The economic costs of droughts in Kenya is enormous as they continue to undermine and in some cases reverse our gains. For instance, the 2008 to 2011 drought cost our economy more than $12 billion. To put this into perspective, at that time, that money would have been enough to finance the education and technology budgets of the country for the next 7 years. It is therefore clear that droughts are a major threat to our nation's development. To mitigate the situation, about 38 billion Kenya shillings has been spent on drought mitigation since a national disaster was declared in September 2021. Our development partners and other non-state actors have put in more than $480 million to complement our efforts. These resources would have gone towards building long-term resilience of the affected communities. As you have heard from the Cabinet Secretary, the current drought has left millions of our citizens food insecure. Moreover, we cannot truly say we have left no one is behind when almost 1 million of our children aged below 5 years and more than 100,000 pregnant and breastfeeding women suffer acute malnutrition. I sincerely thank the EU and the individual member states for standing with us during the current drought. Just 2 weeks ago, we received 25,000 metric tons of wheat under the Grain from Ukraine humanitarian initiative. We thank the EU member states that you participated in the purchase of the wheat. However, humanitarian assistance is only a stopgap measure. Our manifesto recognizes that an estimated 2 million households, that is 1 in 6, are food poor. The vast majority of these are farmers. We believe that support to farmers to raise productivity would not only enable them to feed themselves, but also generate a surplus that contributes to national food security and the economy. Some of these farmers are in our arid and semi-arid regions, where the main production systems are livestock keeping and mixed farming. We are therefore taking proactive action to put in place long-term measures that will address the challenges posed by cyclic droughts. For instance, we have committed to build a mixture of 1,000 dams and ponds across the country over the next several years. It's not a one-year program, but it has to be spread out through public-private partnerships to increase food production. In addition, we recognize our responsibility in the global fight against the planetary crisis of climate change, pollution, and loss of nature and biodiversity, which are threatening the well-being and survival of mankind. As a contribution towards reducing greenhouse emissions, stopping and reversing deforestation, and restoring 5.1 million hectares of deforested and degraded landscapes, we have an ambitious plan to plant 15 billion trees in the next 10 years. Understandably, our current economic model is a delicate balancing act between sustainable growth with environmental conservation and climate resilience. We therefore appreciate the support from the European Union and its member states as we transition to a green economy and other strategic areas. Just last week, His Excellency the President William Ruto held talks with the leadership of the European Union and European Commission in Brussels, during which they committed to strengthening the Kenya-EU strategic partnership. We look forward to finalization of the Economic Partnership Agreement and the establishment of financing instruments to avert the effects of the climate crisis. Ladies and gentlemen, effective drought risk management requires substantial financial resources to ensure early action. Our Constitution provides for sharing not just of power, but also resources between the national government and 47 county governments. This gives space to regions previously marginalized to develop in ways that are more attuned to local priorities. Drought risk management, which is inseparable from sustainable development, is therefore now a shared responsibility of both levels of government, supported by their respective development partners. In the area of managing drought risks, the European Union is arguably our most consistent partner. You have worked with us in our policy shift from reactive to proactive management of drought risks. This has been informed by the fact that droughts are slow onset phenomena which need not and should not lead to emergencies if they are properly monitored and managed. We appreciate that between 2007 and 2022, the EU has provided about 65 million euro, which is approximately 7.8 billion Kenya shillings, towards our drought risk management efforts under the National Drought Management Authority. The continued and consistent support through the NDMA for the last 15 years is clear testimony of the confidence you have in the work that the authority does. Most importantly, the drought preparedness and response interventions implemented have had a positive impact on the food security of the most vulnerable populations in ASAL areas. Indeed, impacts of the current prolonged drought would have been much more worse, were it not for the actions taken with your support. The additional 13 million euro, that is about 1.7 billion Kenya shillings grant under the Dryland Climate Action for Community Drought Resilience Project, which we are launching today, will significantly enhance resilience of our communities to drought and other effects of climate change. We therefore will honor our commitment under the grant contract to contribute a further 5 million euros, that is about Kenya shillings 650 million, as counterpart funding for the project. We will also ensure that additional funds are used prudently, that these funds are used prudently and for the sole purpose of ensuring our vulnerable communities cope with the impacts of drought and climate change. Your Excellencies, before I formally launch, drought can be very dehumanizing. It breeds poverty, and there is no dignity in poverty. So as we fight drought, we are also bringing dignity to these communities. We need to really continue pulling together. With those remarks, Your Excellencies, honorable members, ladies and gentlemen, I now proceed to officially launch the Dryland Climate Action for Community Drought Resilience Project this morning. Thank you. Asante sana. I will hand over to...
We welcome you, Your Excellency, for the symbolic launch of the grant over here.
Okay.
On the count of 3. In 3, 2, 1. Tuende kazi.
To the heat of the sun, I wanna feel it shine inside me, oh yeah.
I wanna spark into the beat of the drum. I want my loved ones all around me, oh yeah. We together.
Excellency, we request that we have a photo session, the high table team.
Oh yeah, get together as one, let's celebrate.
Yes. The parliamentarians will join. Let's have the first.